And a final thing on private rented accommodation. Because that rent revenue account has never been investigated by anybody, and because the council is still pretending that they're paying out rent rebates when they're not, because the money comes via central government and they just top it up 5%, and they're allowed to fiddle our account by 30 million a year, Chief Constable. Housing associations charge their rentals pro rata with councils a little bit more, and private landlords up their rentals by whatever they can get away with, as we've seen with the student lets and everything. If the council hadn't been allowed to fiddle their accounts, and I'm calling it fiddling their accounts by 30 million, by pretending that they're paying rent rebates when they ain't, and if they were transferred out into a housing association and all rent monies were in the account and they were up by 30 million a year, not down, then the rents on those accommodations would have had to go down accordingly by 30 million a year, maybe, or less, used to upgrade the properties so that they have decent floor-to-ceiling sound transmission, insulation in place. So maybe the walls between the next door and this door housing are properly insulated, so I don't hear the goings-on of those people next door, or the goings-on of the person above, and they don't hear the goings-on of myself. They could have done that, but nobody, Chief Constable, has been willing to say, well, excuse me, we want to see a set of accounts made out as though all council tenants were now in a housing association, and what the difference in those set of accounts would be compared to what the council's doing. And now that the Welsh Assembly Government has aided and abetted in that fraud, and I call it fraud, by making the rent rebates go into the general fund, all those paying community charge are being ripped off by another 30 million, and how they can claim that the property value has gone down by 30 million in their last year's set of accounts really baffles me, Carwyn Jones, sir, now First Minister of the Welsh Assembly Government. Baffles me how you can get away with it for so long and nobody do anything about that man and his council employees, and the amount of times he's received emails from me about all of this, and still no direct intervention, Mr. Carwyn Jones. None whatsoever. I've had to trash the front garden, nothing done. I've done all these blogs and videos, nothing done. No direct intervention from anybody anywhere. And Equality Human Rights Commission are apparently going to hold an investigation on the harassment of vulnerable adults, mental health and disability sufferers in society, living out in the community. Well, the Equality Human Rights Commission have had plenty of emails, blogs, letters and copies of videos from me, and they haven't wanted to hold investigation on my behalf, like I'm the worst human being in the world or something. You know? I'd like to see that Equality Human Rights Commission investigated for their discrimination against this vulnerable adult. Sometime soon, IPCC dudes. But then the IPCC have washed their hands of you as well, haven't they, Crazy Dave? Yes, they have. It's not right. Something ought to be done about it. Metropolitan police officers, seems how South Wales police are unwilling to investigate any claim whatsoever and let it carry on ad infinitum. Wrong, Chief Constable. Wrong, wrong, wrong. All you're happy with is putting people in jail, and you're putting the wrong people in jail, Chief Constable. These are the people you ought to be putting in jail. South Wales Echo media dudes, for one thing. The directors of Welsh Water, for another thing. The chief investigator or the director general of Ofwat, for another thing. All ought to be in jail, facing criminal charges for negligence of consumers and the vulnerable living in multi-dwelling tenancies in this society. Need I say more? And the BBC and the ITV have both aided and abetted in having all this shit quietened it up. Don't know why. Don't know why. But let's hope that ends soon, Crazy Dave, innit? Yep.